Mark Holmes and Sean Walker from L.R. Kimball. They are contracted consultants to do the assessment and the feasibility study. They have asked if the, who did you meet at the table? Did you?
The police chiefs and the fire chief and the sheriff and the key folks affected.
Okay, which was kind of everybody sitting out there. Okay.
That's okay.
Okay, all right. And so with that, we will go ahead and turn it over to Mark and let him kick this off. Thank you, Mark.
Morning, everyone. Morning. Mark Holmes with L.R. Kimball. I'm a regional representative for Ohio. I know I met many of you a couple of months ago back in July, and I presented our proposed approach and scope of work for the feasibility study. So today, we're happy to get started and moving forward with the feasibility study with all of you. Sean Walker, who is our project manager for this feasibility study, she will lead our team and be your point of contact. And this morning we'll go through just again review the different steps with the project, especially with some of the data gathering that needs to occur. We'll go over the project schedule and some of the other expectations, and really an opportunity for everyone here to ask any questions as we get started with the project. So with that, I will hand it over to Sean Walker.
Hi, everybody. As Mark said, I'll be the project manager for this effort, and just to give you a little bit of my background, about 29 years in 911 emergency communications. About half of that was on the government side. Well, actually, a little more than half. I've been with Kimball just coming on 10 years. I've worked in small, medium, and large centers. I've consolidated 3. And my area of focus for Kimball is anything operational related or in particular consolidation, although I do work in a project that comes down the pipe. Also on our team will be Steve Watt. He's not with us today, but he will be joining us henceforth. He will be our technical guy who will be handling all of the systems and the IT side of the house. What our purpose in having this meeting really is to make sure we start this project all on the same page. We want to make sure that what we're planning on delivering to you is what you're planning on getting. And if there's any differences in perspective, that we get them all ironed out now. So nothing worse than getting to the end of the project and handing you a report that's not what you think you're getting. So to start, I'll be the point of contact for Kimball. Who will be our point of contact for Eaton and the county? Will there be one, or will there be one from each, or will it be Connie? Connie? Up to you. Okay. How we do this? Well, sorry, I'm not really good at following an agenda. I kind of get up and start talking. Anyways, what I'm most interested in hearing from you guys to start out with, before we get into the project scope of work and the project methodology, is how did you guys get here? What is driving this initiative? Why are we here doing this study for you? Is it service? Is it cost? What is it?
November of last year, we were told that Motorola is a big piece of our 911 system, no longer be supporting that piece of equipment. And both the city and the county have this expensive piece of equipment that needs to be replaced. And that's when we kind of decided maybe we could save some money and benefit by merging these two services together.
Okay. Is it one radio system now or 2?
We have 2 different dispatch centers in the city and the county. We're both looking at $400,000 to $500,000 upgrades individually. Mm-hmm. So we thought it'd be a time to look at if we consolidate, do something together that would make, maybe give us a better product and make financial sense.
Are we looking? Is it the radio system in particular you're looking at, or is it?
Not necessarily. I mean, individually, we're moving towards the same goal, equipment-wise and radio-wise. It's just a matter of what can we do together.
Okay. In general, I understand there's a 911 working group. Is that accurate?
There's a 911 advisory board.
Advisory board, okay. That has been doing some data collection or has collected some information that maybe will be very useful to us.
That data is going to come from Chad's office and my office. We're the two PSAPs in the county.
Great, okay.
But there's nothing been gathered so far.
No.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so typically what we do with these kinds of projects, the first step is, after this meeting, is data collection. And usually we put everybody off by distributing this absolutely really huge and obnoxious spreadsheet with all kinds of information in it that ranges from, it's empirical data mostly. What's your structure, what's your call volumes, your numbers, your equipment, all of that kind of stuff. But if you've already collected it, what I'd like to do, I think, is see what you've got for us, and then we can customize that survey down a little bit so that you don't have to keep looking at the same stuff. Maybe save you guys a little bit of time. So I'll hook up with you too.
Okay.
And once we find out what you've already got, we'll customize that, and then we'll send the survey out to you too. And it contains information on budget and operations and staffing and technology, and every drawer is open pretty much. Particularly when you go to the budget, part of the study is to do a cost-benefit analysis on what you're paying now and what would it look like as a combined center. I don't know your operations yet, but often your budgets are included in the larger police department budget, or to some degree they're mingled. So I'm asking that you, when you look at it, you might have to do things like, okay, supervision is sworn. How much of my day as the sworn supervisor is devoted to PSAP? 20%? Okay, 20% of my salary is a PSAP cost. So I'm going to need you to go, along that thought process, if you wouldn't mind. Because at the end of the day, our results will only be as good as the data that we get. So, okay, so we'll send that out, and typically we give about 2 weeks, but it's you take a look at it. Okay, we'll put a due date of 2 weeks on it, and if we need to change that, we can. Either move it up or move it out, whatever fits your needs. So once we get the data collection survey, and the reason we do the survey in advance is so that we can come on site, which is the next step, with already having an idea of the baseline operations. We don't have to sit down and talk with your folks about gathering numbers and all of this stuff, but we can actually spend more time talking with your folks, observing, and taking a look at the PSAP, how it actually operates, and all of those kinds of things, which I think is a better use of our on-site time. So that would be the next step. We'll get the survey back, have a couple days to review it, then we'll come back and we'll visit each of the PSAPs. During that time, we'll talk with whoever is, excuse me, we'll sort this out offline, but whoever within those agencies needs to be talked to, whether it's the sheriff and the police chief and you gentlemen and your supervisors and your dispatchers, all of those folks. And we don't want to forget fire as well. I'm assuming that maybe the city dispatches for you, Chief?
Yes.
Okay, so we will want to, we would want to speak with you as well.
And then we'll have a representative board of Preble County Fire Chief, Fire EMS chiefs to provide input as well. So we'll have a nice cross-section.
Perfect, okay. So we'll get with you guys and figure out who the folks are that we need to speak with. Key decision makers, I know we spoke with the city manager some time ago, but if we need to speak with the commissioners and the city manager again, then we'll touch all the bases. I can tell you right off the top, consolidating the two centers is absolutely feasible. From a technology perspective, there's no question. Is it affordable? Another question entirely, but it can be done. Question really comes down to, should it be done? Just because you can doesn't mean you should necessarily. What typically derails these efforts are two things: politics and money. And part of what we do, we'll be asking a whole boatload of questions to kind of assess the political environment here, the willingness to move forward with this. There are places where the politics are just so over the top that we have said, don't even go there, because it's not going to happen. So, you know, those are two areas that we will be focusing on, in addition to, of course, the technology. What should the technology look like? What can you reuse? What do you have? What would you have to buy new? All those sorts of questions we will take a look at. I feel like I left something in.
Do you want to mention with the survey, just any support that's going
Thank
through?
you. The survey is a little obnoxious, I'll tell you right now, it's obnoxious. Just in its size. So if there's anything on there that you're unsure of what it might mean, or what we're looking for, or call me. I'll answer any questions you've got. If necessary, we get on a conference call and walk through the different sections. Whatever's needed, we'll help you out with that. Should you not know an answer, I know there's often times where folks will come across something that maybe your particular equipment doesn't supply the information we're asking for. Leave it blank. When we come on site, we'll just touch base on it, make sure you understood the question and that we understood. We'll get the information if it's available. If not, we'll know that it's not available. So there's places that don't even know their call counts, which is it's not a big deal. We have rules of thumb that we can use to estimate all of that stuff. And what we do is we just note how we estimated it and caveat in the report that it wasn't based on an estimate. So, anyways, I'm not going to go through each item that we'll be covering. It's a pretty extensive list, but in general terms, we'll benchmark your current conditions. How are you doing things now? We're not here to say whether your operations are good, bad, or indifferent. That's not our role here. Our role is to look at, does it make sense for you guys to consolidate? Operationally, what kind of service are you providing? What could you provide if you were combined? Technology, whether there's cost savings out there, advantages from combining into a single center. Look and see. We really are able to, when we get into the PCFs and watch and see how you do things, see how your interoperability with different agencies, with each other, with bordering counties, with mutual aid, those kinds of things. Emergency medical dispatch, how is that going? All these different things that, again, we're not here to say whether you're doing a good job or a bad job. That's not our role. But just to benchmark how things currently are, and then apply what typically happens in a consolidation in terms of establishment of standards, APCO, NENA, NFPA, those kinds of things. From there, we'll take the information that we collected when the benchmarking current conditions, and we will go through what would a combined center look like. What are staffing needs, what organizational structure might be appropriate, what kind of, and again, we'll touch base on the technology, all of the different CAD, radio, CPE, login recorder, those kinds of things. The two biggest issues that you're going to find are the governance agreement. Who's going to run it? Where is it going to live? And I don't mean, when I say where it's going to live, I don't mean facility, even though that is a component here. Is it going to be part of one of the agencies that it serves? Is it going to be run by the county? Is it going to be run by the city? Is it going to run by the fire department? Where is it going to live? And there's a variety of different models that you can establish. There are pros and cons to each, and we will certainly offer recommendations. At the end of the day, it boils down to what works for this community. There is no right or wrong. I know where I'm from. We consolidated back in 1985, and looking back, it's hard to imagine the governance agreement they put in place worked, and it's still working. But there was a time where the county paid for chairs, city paid for people, couldn't sit in a county conference room chair because it was county. I mean, it was all kinds of nonsense, but, all this time later, it's running really well. It's hard to believe, but they're making it work. So it really comes down to how you folks can make it work. The other thing is, how are we going to pay for this? And there are a variety of cost distribution models out there. And they are based on a wide variety of criteria. We will be happy to give you examples. We won't recommend. We'll give you pros and cons, and I'll tell you why we won't recommend. Because cost distribution comes down to what everybody considers fair. In Model A, you're using population, call count, and the number of officers. I'm making this up, obviously, but that results in a cost savings for the city of Eaton. County's costs go up. Model B, we're doing just call counts. County's costs go down, city of Eaton's costs go up. Now, obviously, depending on which side of the fence you sit on, is going to have a large bearing on what she considers to be fair. So typically there's some middle ground found, but it's either going to be the governance or the cost distribution that's going to derail it, typically. So, and what's fair where I'm from, you guys might look at me and laugh. So that's why we don't recommend. We'll offer you a variety of options. We'll give you some basic guardrails about how you might want to approach it and pitfalls and things like that. But we really can't say what's right for you guys in that respect. So, I think as far as what we're going to cover, I think that's about. We can talk about specifics if anybody has any questions, but. Again, the project methodology is the kickoff meeting, the data collection spreadsheet, the on-site interviews and observation. Then we take all that information and we create a draft report. When the draft is finished, we will submit it. I'm not sure when you'll have to make a decision on who will be the reviewing folks. We'll submit it for review. And the purpose of the review is to make sure our assumptions are based on accurate facts and that we haven't inadvertently stepped on any political landmines. Because if nothing else, we want this document to be useful for you. And sometimes if you just say concept in a certain way, everybody shuts down. So we count on you guys to help us navigate those waters. So primarily it's to check for facts, make sure that everything that we based our assumptions on are accurate. And then to make sure that it's useful from a political correctness perspective, if that makes sense. That's not quite what I mean, but we don't want to blow people up in the executive summary. We want them to read the report and then make their own mind up.
So would that be the committee that would be reading that report then? The committee that we've formed? Sheriff, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the committee should look at that draft, I think, to make sure that everybody's comfortable with the content. From looking at it from operations-wise, I think Chad and I have to be comfortable with what they've summarized, that his operation is, my operation is, as long as maybe the goals, would you agree with me?
Yeah,
so I think that draft probably needs to come back to that committee for an initial review, and then if something needs to be tweaked or whatever, we can do that.
I would ask that, I'm not sure how large the committee is, but that someone on the committee be the point person, so that all revisions come into that person. Any disputes or disagreements on content be resolved so that we don't have different committee members commenting on the same text.
Right.
So, if that makes,
Yeah, I would think probably that, probably Chad and I to be able to see if there's any specific issues there, because we deal with it every day, so. Right.
Then the revisions will be made, any revisions that need to be made, and then we will deliver a final report to you. The back of the report is typically the last section. We'll talk about next steps, where we think you should go from here. Typically what happens is the next steps are for the folks, if it looks like it's feasible, it can be done, it can be, it's affordable, then the decision makers sit down and start talking about governance and cost distribution. Before anybody commits, before anybody signs anything, if you can't get past the development of those two issues, you're not going anywhere anyways. So if those two issues can be resolved, then you can start taking a look. Once you have your cost distribution model chosen, you can go back and rework the numbers and really get firm numbers as far as what it's going to cost you, and that's actually a very good point that I forgot. The numbers in this report, what this report's not going to give you, it's not going to give you, it will cost you X. It's going to give you budgetary estimates. And the reason that I'm really stressing that is because there are so many decision points in this process that could change those numbers. It could be the rates of pay that are decided upon. It could be the technology that's chosen. So we'll give you our best estimates. It's not until after you figure out how you're going to divide this up and some of these other decisions are made that you can sit down and say, okay, this is what it's going to cost us. And clearly, you need that information before you can make a firm commitment. So, just make very clear what's going to be provided and what you're not going to get, because that's really an assumption that is often people are disappointed when we say no, these are estimates. So, I think, did I miss anything, Mark?
You want to? I know you talked about the interviews. But sort of the scheduling and typically schedule them all together over a certain amount of time.
Yeah. Pardon?
And the follow-up.
There's two things I forgot, actually. First is the project communications plan, and we really believe that in order for us to stay on track with everybody throughout the length of this process, that we'll need to have some regular contact. Clearly, initially, you'll probably be sick of us, but after we start writing the report, we kind of, I don't say we fall off the map, but we don't have a lot of as much contact because we're writing and you're waiting. So we like to have regular conference calls, if for nothing else, just to touch base. Does anybody have any concerns? Does anybody have any comments? Have any questions come up on our side of the house? And again, we can touch base later on and figure out what might work. How often? Once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever works. So, and the other thing is, when we come on site, what we'd like to do is we would like to not only do our observations, but interview the folks that we need to talk to. So we may need some assistance with scheduling. Your meeting, Chief, is that a daytime meeting or an evening meeting? When is that typically held?
Normally evening,
Okay.
however, we could make arrangements for the stakeholders to get together.
It's not. I mean, if there's a meeting already scheduled that we can fit into, evening meetings are not a problem. We're here anyways. We're happy to come and talk to you whenever is convenient for you. I don't know how often you meet, but if it really doesn't fit the time schedule, then we might want to look at the other option. But we'll just try to be as unobtrusive as possible. So we may need a little help with scheduling. And then the overall schedule. This is a tough time of year for scheduling. There's a preliminary schedule on the back of your agenda. The contract says 100 working days, which is essentially 5 months or so. This schedule is 80 working days, so we've got some room in there. Where we're going to have issues typically would be during data collection, if you're hard-pressed to find time to get the surveys done or things like that. scheduling of interviews, those kinds of things sometimes will delay. This time of year, we're coming right into the holidays. So you'll see on there that we've got a target date of December 5th to submit the draft to you. We start with a review period of 2 weeks, and that is completely up to you guys. We just pick that. For you guys to review it and get your revisions identified and all of that. We can make that longer, we can make it shorter, but obviously that brings us smack into Christmas. So that portion of the schedule, I would say, is pretty iffy at this point. You'll see that the review session is to be determined, and again, that's mostly because of that whole Christmas season. But I think once we get the data collection survey out and we get that back, then the rest of the pieces will fall in place. But we've got about a month's worth of playtime here. And still meet what was in the contract. Clearly, we don't want to hold you up any more than you want to. I'm just trying to be realistic. The holidays, you always say it's not going to affect it. It always does. Because people are gone and, So right now, as of today, we've got a final submittal date of January 19th, if we meet this schedule. So that's our current timeline, but I would have expected that we may be updating that a time or two. I think that's it. Questions that I can answer for you? Concerns? You look like you have something to say.
Spectator.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you.
Oh, you're fine.
You might have something to say next year.
How about any questions or comments about our specific project or what we're doing, or about the topics in general that we can answer for you?
So when will the data collection survey information be distributed? How will it be distributed?
Via email. When will be dependent upon my discussion with these two gentlemen. What we would like to do is find out what you've already got, what you've already collected, and then just do a little customization so that you don't get the same questions over again. And kind of expedite it. I would think within a week, and you'll distribute that via email. You're probably going to find that you'll need more than one person to fill it out, just because it covers a variety of different areas.
I'm just pleased that you're here to help guide this process and take an outside look at it, because I know you guys came highly recommended, and I've heard of all the other counties that you guys have helped through this process, and starting in on this committee. I think it's important that we take a good look at it, and you will look at all angles of it, and then let the committee decide. So I'm glad you're helping us out here.
Thank you. It's our pleasure to be here. We're really looking forward to getting started.
And I think I must say that I think the city and the county work very well together, so I don't think you're going to find a problem there. They try to work very well together. So.
And please don't take my, sometimes it can be a little, I'm anticipating the arguing, because that's what typically happens.
It'll be good discussion.
So,
Discussion.
Discussion is a better word. So it'll be a pleasure if everybody's already on the same page. That will be refreshing, and it'll be great. But I was kind of take the approach that we're going to have some rub of some kind. So.
Okay. So there are no questions.
Great.
I guess she will be contacting Sheriff Simpson and review. Get started.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone for coming.